program on immigration and you. I am your immigration attorney, Michael Fulwani, and once again, we have with us Attorney David Nachman, my partner. David, welcome.
Thanks so much, Michael. Always a pleasure to be here.
What's happening now? We have a H-1B season coming very soon.
We do. H-1B season is just beginning, but before we get into H-1B issues, Michael, I think we want to remind our viewers that Michael and I are still traveling in India. And probably by this time, we've already covered New Delhi and Jaipur and Gujarat, and we're probably headed back to Mumbai. So if you or any family members or your friends have any questions, would like to meet with us, please feel free to email to us directly, call the office. You'll see the telephone number on your screen. Or, of course, you can contact our affiliated office in Mumbai and Bandra, and they will make arrangements for anyone who you would like to come see us. Also, if there's anyone in any professional organizations that you would like us to make a presentation to, please feel free to reach out for us because we would love to be able to connect with you on that.
Okay, let's talk about H-1B visas.
H-1Bs.
I have a couple of questions. First of all, why do people say that you must file or send your H-1B application on March 31st? What's so important about March 31st?
Well, Michael, March, it's an excellent question. I get that question from many of our clients, and the answer is that the earliest date that you can file the H-1B petition is 6 months prior to the H-1B start date. The H-1B start date is October 1st. So we'll take 2014 as the example. Every year it's the same. October 1st, 2014 is the start date, and so we'll be filing 2014 H-1Bs starting on April 1st of 2014. So what we do is we send them out on March 31st with the expectation that they will be properly lodged for filing with the USCIS on April 1st, 2014.
So what happens if we file on April 7th, let us say?
Well, you could try to file on April 7th. The only problem is that, as you know, we don't know and we can't predict the uptake of H-1Bs. We don't know how long they're going to be available. Last year, we know that within the first 3 or 4 business days after the weekend of H-1B filings, all of the H-1Bs were gone. So if the economy is strong, and what we're hearing right now and seeing right now is that it is in fact strong, and predictions are that the future is going to be strong, then of course there is a high degree of reliability that the H-1Bs this year will be handled probably the same as last year and the same as it was several years ago as a lottery, where all of the H-1Bs within the first 3 to 5 days in which they're submitted are aggregated by the USCIS, and then a lottery is held in which that lottery, they allegedly choose randomly the H-1Bs that will be considered toward the cap.
So what happens in my case, H-1B application doesn't make it in the lottery? Will my money be gone?
Well, no, your money won't be gone, but what will happen is that they should be returning the money, your filing fees, and all the forms if your H-1B is not chosen. So what are some of the things that you can do to ensure that it's chosen? Well, number one, of course, is you can file as early as possible, and that is, as we're saying, as close to March 31st, or hopefully going out the door on March 31st as much as possible. Also, one of the things that you can do, there's something called an LCA, a labor condition application, and several years ago it was taking 5 days to get an LCA, a labor condition application, back in the mail. So you don't have to wait until April 1st or March 31st to do your LCA. You can do the LCA in advance. The LCA is a document that is blessed by the U.S. Department of Labor. So when you submit it, rather than to ask for 3 full years from April 1st, you just back it up a little bit and cut a few days off on the end, and then of course you can get the LCA in time.
So all this work that you are saying that you can do, you really mean the employer. Because the person that is applying, if I am applying for H-1 visa, I cannot apply myself. Right?
Well,
I have to have, in most instances, an employer who's willing to give a job offer. And
Right.
you can create your employer and all that, but basically it is a company, it's an employer who's offering a job.
Right, H-1B, right, Michael. H-1B sponsorship requires the employer to be the sponsor. It requires the employer to make several representations, and it's employer-specific.
Right.
However, there is something called concurrent H-1B, so you can apply for several H-1Bs with different employers at the same time. And the other thing that a lot of people don't realize is that you can do part-time H-1Bs. So H-1Bs don't have to be on a full-time basis, they can also be on a part-time basis. Now, one of the other things that we should point out is that what we're talking about here is we're focusing in on the cap, and we want to make our viewers aware that there are deadlines, certain deadlines that they have to be mindful of if they're thinking about doing H-1Bs for this fiscal year. However, there are also cap-exempt organizations. So, for example, government research organizations, their affiliates, and or academic institutions of higher learning, okay, are exempt from the H-1B cap. So those organizations are doing H-1Bs throughout the year. They don't have to worry about this March 31st deadline to get the filing in by April 1st.
So let's
now,
say,
there's also another H-1B, Michael. It actually came up recently. I got an inquiry, and this is not going to be pertinent to all of our viewers. However, the U.S. Department of Defense, there's something called the DoD H-1B, Department of Defense H-1B, which is really a nice little tool. So if your organization is a defense contractor, you can actually take advantage of what's called the DoD H-1B, and that's not a cap-exempt H-1B. So that's a nice little tool that we've been able to use for our defense contracting firms to be able to allow them to circumvent the H-1B cap.
So let's say I have an MBA degree and I have a store, Gujarati, Nadiyad Gujarati store, grocery store here. And they say, okay, we will sponsor you. You see any problem there?
Well, the only issue here, Michael, is that if you have an individual who's going to work for a grocery store, the most important thing that we have to focus in on is what is the position that that individual is going to hold, because H-1B means that it's for professional and specialty occupation workers. It means that these are individuals who have the equivalence of a U.S. baccalaureate degree, okay, which is something that we can look at in several ways. One is that they actually have the degree. Two is that they have a combination of education and experience. Or three, they have pure experience, which is used under the rule. It's called the 3-to-1 rule, where 3 years of experience, professional level experience, is equal to 1 year of baccalaureate degree education. So if you have an individual who has 12 years of work experience, professional level, that equates to the potential of a baccalaureate degree.
So what I give an example to most people, let us say you need a full glass of orange juice, but you have only 3/4 full of orange juice. So in bringing this to an equivalency, you find some orange juice, another 25-30% of orange juice, put into that orange juice to orange juice, not apple juice.
Exactly.
So it's a combination of this 3/4 comes from the education, 1/4 comes from the experience, and A plus B is equal to C. That's what you're saying.
Exactly.
Now, what you're saying then, this job that is being offered has to be then in the field of education and experience of the person.
That's right. Well, it doesn't necessarily have to be in the field. I think what it is that it has to be closely linked. So I always give an example. I teach paralegals at Fairleigh Dickinson University in Madison, and what I often tell them is that it's a good idea to try to link it as much as possible. And I always give an example where a couple of years ago, it was many years ago, I did a case for an H-1B. It was a gem cutter. And what she was doing is she had a background, actually her degree was in biology. And what we did is we made an argument to the government that there's a healing value of gemstones, and that she was involved in understanding the healing value of gemstones. Now, that was a connection, and probably a very, very difficult, I call that a lot of creative lawyering, where we were linking her degree to what she was doing. So I don't know today whether you would be able to get a case like that through. But I think, for example, if you had an individual who's, let's say, an IT professional, if they have a bachelor's degree in engineering, in a bachelor's degree in mechanical engineering, or a bachelor's degree in IT, or something that's closely related, I think you'd be able to make a good argument to get the case
point.
through.
Closely
Yeah.
related in somehow,
Exactly.
in some form, in some shape.
Correct.
That education and experience has to be related to the job duties that the person is going to perform. It's
Exactly.
very important.
Exactly. Super important. And yeah.
Who pays the fees for H-1B? If I'm an applicant, is it okay for me to pay the fees, or employer has to pay the fees?
Well, here's the thing, is that the employer technically is supposed to pay the fees. There's certain fees that the employer has to pay, and there's certain fees that the employee has to pay. But the employer absolutely positively has to pay the Department of Labor training fee. So the Department of Labor training fee is a fee that comes under it's a fee that's paid in connection with the H-1B, where that money is put into a fund where the Department of Labor divvies out those monies in the United States as grants to try to train highly skilled workers here in the United States to be able to take the jobs that purportedly are being filled now with H-1B
So
workers.
what kind of acts on the part of the H-1B applicant or a holder of H-1B or the employer of H-1B happen or do that constitute violation of the H-1B laws? In other words, you had mentioned something about a wage. That
Right,
wage
well,
has to be
right.
paid according to LCA.
Right. Well, one of the
What
things,
is-
yeah, one of the things that's very important, of course, and all employers, H-1B employers who may be viewing this video probably know, is that you must pay the H-1B wage. If you're paying less than the H-1B wage, you're potentially opening yourself up to, number one, an audit by the U.S. Department of Labor. And just so everyone knows, probably about 50% of the H-1Bs are going to be site visited, which means that they're going to go out and they're going to be USCIS, FDNS, the Fraud Detection and National Security Division, is going to be sending people out to make sure that the H-1Bs are bona fide H-1Bs and the individuals who are serving in H-1B status are actually being paid the amount that was represented in the documents.
So let us say that I am an H-1B employer in IT, and I don't have a customer yet. So I tell the H-1B person, hold it, wait, maybe a month or two. When the project comes, then I'll send you. Right now you hold. People call it a benching.
Yeah, it's,
What's the problem
that's
with
right.
benching?
Well,
the employer doesn't have a job right now. Hold
right.
it, wait for it. The customer comes in, I'll send you there.
That's right, Michael. The problem with benching is that what you're essentially doing is putting the person into hiatus, and you're not allowed to do that. You have to be paying them while they're employed. So
Even if
benching
he's
is
sitting
very
home doing
bad.
nothing, drinking beer and watching TV, even then I have to pay him?
Very bad. Yeah, absolutely. You have to pay them. Absolutely.
Okay,
So
what about-
I think the last
yeah.
point that I'd like to make, because I know we're running short on time, is that it's never too early to start planning for the preparation of your H-1B. I know that our office, many of my colleagues are telling me that they're starting to prepare documents. Start as soon as possible.
Well, we're running out of time. David, thank you very much for important information that our viewers got today on H-1B program. Thank all of you for watching the program. If you have any questions, comments, or suggestions, please email to us. We'll try our best to respond to your questions. Thank you very much and goodbye.
Thanks so much. Bye now.